Fast as lightning, sharp as a sword. Greetings, YouTube. I'm LightningSword, and boom! Ha ha! New vectors. Yep, I know. I'm a stud. You like them? I hope so. I paid Thunderblur good money for them. Special thanks to him for the hard work. I've linked him in the description. Well, that's the good news. The bad news? I have about 2 months to churn out reviews on Season 6 before Season 7 starts. And that means getting back to reviewing the show's weakest season yet. Starting with Where the Apple Lies. If The Fault in Our Cutie Marks gave me new hope for this season, then this episode completely killed it. Only 4 episodes left at that point, and I gave up hope. Allow me to elaborate. The episode starts with the Apple family doing stuff. Filthy Rich leaves their farm with his usual shipment of jam, which Apple Bloom was supposed to keep track of. She says she did, but as it turns out, she gave Rich cider by mistake.
Because we wouldn't want Filthy Rich to get a shipment of cider when he's supposed to get Zap Apple Jam. You know how Granny feels about selling cider anywhere but on the farm.
No selling of your best product anywhere but the source? Complicating the trip for most ponies due to their location and effectively stunting your sales? Seems a bit paranoid, I think. Well, Apple Bloom says she wanted to fix things before any damage could be done, but evidently telling a little white lie is still a sin, even though it was a simple mistake that could never have snowballed into a disaster if Apple Bloom had been given the chance to— Oh, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. And when AJ says, much to AB's disbelief, that she knows what lies can do, the whole family turns up to laugh at her.
Your whole life.
What's so funny? Oh, sugar cube. Your big sister lied so much when she was a filly, the whole family ended up in the hospital.
I want you to remember this, and I will explain why when the time is right. So now we get something else that the MLP staff is too good to churn out this late in the series. A flashback episode. Which, if good shows like Batman Beyond and Samurai Jack have taught me anything, means the show is on its last legs. Oh, that's right. So the story starts with younger AJ and Big Mac, so just Mac then, fighting over who should run business on the farm.
All I'm saying is that you may have plenty of brawn, but I'm the one with the ideas on how to run things better around here.
Applejack, Applejack, Applejack. Ideas are all well and good, but you can't plow a field with them. I don't know how many times I've told you that.
Too many.
There's just something cringy about Big Mac talking for long stretches. We saw the effects in episodes like Hearts and Hooves Day, Ponyville Confidential, and Bloom and Gloom, and none of those episodes were particularly good. And guess what? He talks throughout the entire episode.
Just telling Cousin Brayburn last week. Now there's a pony who knows how to put his back. Maybe it's interesting and maybe it ain't, but it's definitely just can't believe you'd make a deal with Filthy Rich. Granny Smith told us your grandpa, Stinkin' Rich, used to ask her every year. I hate to say I told you so, Apple. I forgot to ask if we had any old at Sweet Apple Acres. We've always been about quality.
Why? Even Applejack knows the struggle. I know how you feel, sweetheart. Anyway, while out and about, the siblings run into a younger Filthy Rich and his blushing bride-to-be, Spoiled Milk. Spoiled Milk. Did that name not send up red flags? Like, at all?
My amazing husband-to-be is running the Rich family business now. Did you know that? Well, now you do.
Right. Filthy Rich is the dumbest husband of all time. Well, at least she was kind of hot, you know, before the surgery. Well, with Filthy taking over his family's business, he proposes a deal to sell Apple Family cider at his shop. Max says no because apples prefer to live in the Stone Age, but Applejack offers Filthy a few barrels to sell as a test run before any deal can be made. So far, this story has nothing to do with lying. If there's a moral here, they've already lost my interest in it. And upon their return home, Applejack tells Granny Smith about the deal, and predictably—
Absolutely not!
This makes no sense. Apple Family Cider is bar none the most popular beverage in Ponyville. Super Speedy Cider Squeezy 6000 more than proved that. So having another, more convenient place selling cider, one that gives even half its profits back to the source, would have the apples drowning in money. This deal makes all the sense in the world. But of course, anything remotely new or different is the Apple family's kryptonite. Oh, we get an explanation, sure.
Sale.
Your cider and your jam ain't the same thing. Zap apple jam jars preserve the flavor for moons, but cider starts to spoil the second it comes out the press. That is why every cider season, all of Ponyville lines up at Sweet Apple Acres, and first come, first served.
So set up a station at the store and have it made fresh there. It may take extra money, but the sales afterwards would still more than make up for it.
Cider making is iffy business, and we're probably not going to have a lot this year anyway, what with all the blight.
Okay, that makes a little more sense. But blight can't possibly happen every year, so next season you're out of excuses. But as with the hyper-traditionalist household, the old people's word is law, even when they might be wrong. So insert Big Mac checking out cheerily / Cheerily's eye-melting fashion reference joke here, and the sibs go to break the bad news to Filthy.
Well, I've always thought that the most important thing a pony can do is say exactly what's on his mind to any pony who listens, so every pony everywhere always knows everything you're thinking.
And you don't ever have to listen to any pony else.
What?
Don't say exactly.
Exactly.
Why are you doing this to me? Anyway, Filthy's got everything set up, but now that the deal might be off, he gets pissy and threatens to cut off business ties altogether. And AJ went home, talked to Granny Smith about it, and proved how their self-destructive, hyper-traditional nonsense alienates possibilities and tempers that lesson with making promises you can't keep. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want a mature lesson? Well, screw you! Finally, they stick in the point where the lying
The
begins.
thing is, Rich, it ain't really up to us. You see, Granny's...
Sick!
You lie!
Let me just point out here that Mac, who's usually talking in this flashback, stays silent for most of this exchange from this point on. But on the plus side, since this is only the tip of the dishonesty iceberg, you, my viewers, will see an awful lot of that clip of everyone's favorite short, green, egomaniacal alien. No, not that one.
Yeah.
Anyway, with a battle of reasoning being put on hold because of a visit from Filthy Rich, Applejack now needs to, naturally, scramble to cover up her lies.
Excuse me 1 second.
Oh, Applejack, your brother was just explaining why he always wears his yoke.
I choose to assume that was dirty. And now, cringe.
Oh, well, you know how Big Mac can get to talking, especially when he's upset. And right now, he's just as worried about Granny Smith as I am.
You lie!
And now, more cringe.
Achoo!
And the riches still won't go away. Even though there's clearly shenanigans going on here. Yeah, Filthy Rich is an idiot. I suppose that needed to be made clearer.
Big Mac didn't want to be rude, but you just can't see Granny right now because she's got apple blight. The doctors think it's from working in the orchard for so many years. You see, we had to take Granny to Ponyville General.
So, what is that? 3 lies? Okay.
You lie! You lie! You lie!
Now here's where the hospital part plays in. Like I said, be ready to remember that part. Obvious we can't let him find out scheming is obvious, and...
It's the apple blight. It's starting to infect ponies now.
You lie!
Yeah, you get the picture. So now they're at the hospital. You know, I know AJ is just a kid in this flashback, but she's not that stupid. She has the Riches thinking Granny Smith is sick, and Granny Smith thinking she's there to provide scientific advice. How did she ever think this would work? And why the hell is Big Mac still going along with this? As much talking as he does, you'd think he'd put it to good use. Like, say, slapping some sense into his idiot sister. Well, with Applejack giving the Riches the runaround, now the plan is to have Big Mac masquerade as their sick grandmother, making Granny Smith's presence here completely moot.
This is spinning way out of control, Applejack.
So is this episode. Whoever wrote it needs a Valium stat. Oh, I see.
Just lay down, keep still, and promise me you won't say anything for once in your life.
Yep.
Hey! Now, even more wacky forced-in circumstances keep little AJ sweating. We have no idea what happened to these poor schmucks, and... Wait. You really fucking did that, didn't you? You really fucking did. Now we get more running around and my god, Derpy, what did they do to you? Ugh. Between this and the random pacing of this episode, I'm about ready for the hospital. Now the doctors think Granny is a surgeon. Rich thinks Mac is Granny. Granny thinks the patient has a plant disease. Mac thinks he's about to get filleted. And I think this confusing, unnecessary, jumbled mess is so ridiculously stupid I can't even... I can't feel my face. And at long last, Applejack bites the bullet and tells the truth. Cue the soft, inspirational music that comes with the moral, AJ admitting she was wrong, and Big Mac admitting that his development of this episode has nothing to do with anything at all.
Maybe if I paid more attention to what you had to say instead of talking all the time, none of this would have happened in the first place. I just need to talk less, listen more.
You did talk less, when you needed to talk more. Mac's arc in this episode did nothing but give Applejack a useless foil. If his whole talking too much deal was applied logically, he would have stopped AJ's dumb schemes easily. But he went along with everything. It was listening that kept them both in the mess Applejack created. He shouldn't take blame for talking all the time. He should take blame for shutting the hell up. Well, at least Filthy's getting chewed out for throwing a hissy fit and threatening to take his ball and go home. Which I think is just a tad bit unfair, since AJ caused all this trouble to begin with. Especially when you see Spoiled scoot away from him like that. That's cold. Well, that was the dumbest rationale against lying in the history of speech. And let me explain why. Apple Bloom told one tiny little lie in a slight mix-up that could have happened to anyone, and given the chance, she would have fixed everything before anyone found out. Applejack had told several lies after failing to admit she couldn't deliver on what she promised, despite the fact that she could have easily done so and let Granny handle Filthy Rich later. Granted, both times the lies were told out of a place of panic, but the circumstances otherwise are totally different. And that ridiculous story is weak and convoluted justification against lying. And even if Apple Bloom couldn't have done anything, it was no excuse to go off on her the way Applejack did. Oh, and remember when I told you to be cognizant of the whole hospital thing? Granny Smith had us thinking Applejack's lies put the whole family in the hospital. As in, grievously injured everyone. But no, they did end up in the hospital, but not in the way that was implied. You could say what she told us was true.
From a certain point of view.
But I don't accept that Ben Kenobi bullshit. If they're this harsh on liars, let's go after the ones who lie by omission. I'm sure it will be an enlightening experience. But remember, gang, Apple Bloom is an idiot.
Not a story I'm proud of, but it taught me a lifelong lesson about being honest. I hope you learned something too.
I sure did! I learned that no pony starts out perfect, and sometimes you gotta make a few mistakes to figure out who you are.
Why did it take you 6 seasons to figure that out? You know what? Forget this. Let's just cue the group laugh and get the hell out of here. So, that was where the apple lies, and my head hurts. A lot. This episode is stupid. It takes a weak, overdone moral and turns it into a contrived, ass-backwards pile of cringe. The characters are self-righteous twits, the humor is ham-fisted and worthy of more eye rolls than laughs, and the message doesn't even remotely match the initial incident it was told in response to. If you want to teach kids that lying is wrong, you can't use an incident that monumental as justification for preaching it. That's like punishing a kid for playing Jenga and justifying it by saying you once blew up a building. The message is also too black and white for kids. In episodes like It Ain't Easy Being Breezy's, The Fault in Our Cutie Marks, and even 28 Pranks Later, the message is a bit deeper and more complex than just saying, don't ever do that because it's always wrong. Is it wrong to be cruel, to be kind, even if the kindness is not quite obvious at first? Is it wrong to give up when you know you're out of options and fighting a losing battle? Is it wrong to use someone's own methods against them to teach them a lesson they wouldn't learn before? If you answered yes or no, you'd be right either way. There's a position on either side that demands support, and it's presented that way in each case. Here, they just say lying is wrong, and they don't adequately explain why. They also don't support the other side of the argument by saying that a little white lie can be harmless, even used for good. It's a moral that they had a chance to give the gray area treatment, providing a great twist on an old trope as usual. Hell, they could have done what I mentioned earlier and given us a message about traditionalism versus progressivism, and about making short-sighted promises. But no, they dropped the ball. Again. Not that the moral would have helped much, the pacing is so awkward and haphazard you lose interest in any morals halfway in. This episode brought down the average rating of Season 6 by quite a bit, and after such an excellent episode like The Fault in Our Cutie Marks, and a flawed but actually enjoyable episode like Pony Point of View. And with what's remaining of the season at that point, it's pretty much downhill from there. So, with all that out of the way, I'm going to do some research on why both AJ's parents and Apple Bloom are missing from this episode. If you like the review, you know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe, support me on Patreon, and I'll catch you in the next video. This is LightningSword. Stay quick, stay sharp, and thanks for watching. Well, to be fair, Applejack didn't really lie throughout the whole episode. She just gave us alternative facts!